A young teacher, full of passion and hope, faces her first day at a rough school. Excited but nervous, she's determined to inspire her students. However, a group of troubled teens begins to test her boundaries, and their bullying escalates in dangerous ways. One late afternoon, the bullying crosses the line. The young teacher is cornered, mocked, and violently attacked, leaving her in a coma. The school turns cold, many staff turn a blind eye, and whispers about her weakness circulate. A single dad, a war veteran with scars of his own, witnesses the chaos. He rushes in, saves her life, and becomes a protector for her. His bond with his daughter and his sense of justice spark a turning point. The morning sun rose slowly over the weary city skyline, its golden light spilling across cracked sidewalks and tired buildings as if trying to breathe life into them. And somewhere inside a modest apartment on the second floor of a worn brick complex, a young woman named Emily Hart stood before her mirror, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the strap of her leather satchel, her wide brown eyes filled with a mixture of fear and excitement. She was 23 years old, fresh out of her teaching degree, brimming with idealism and the quiet stubbornness of someone who had always believed that kindness had the power to change lives. And today was her very first day as a teacher. Her blouse was tucked neatly into a long skirt, her chestnut hair tied into a ponytail that bounced nervously against her shoulders whenever she moved, and she whispered to herself like a small prayer, "This is it, Emily, new chapter. You can do this." She had dreamed of this moment since she was a child, sitting in classrooms herself, staring at teachers who either inspired her or made her feel invisible. And she had promised herself she would grow into the kind who inspired, who noticed, who cared, because she knew from personal experience what it meant to be overlooked. When she stepped outside the apartment, the cool breeze carried with it the sharp scent of asphalt and the faint aroma of breakfast drifting from nearby homes. But her eyes were fixed ahead on the looming structure of the school where she was assigned to teach. The building was large but tired, its bricks faded from decades of neglect, graffiti scars running along its walls, windows streaked with grime. It looked less like a place of learning and more like a fortress battered by storms. And yet Emily tightened her grip on her satchel and walked forward with her chin raised. Inside the hallways chaos reigned, lockers slammed with metallic echoes, teenagers shouted insults and laughter that cut sharp through the air. A paper airplane soared over Emily's head before crashing into the floor, and students barely gave her a glance as she weaved through them. Her heart pounded as she searched for her classroom, and when she finally pushed the door open she was greeted by rows of mismatched desks, some covered in carved initials and doodles, others scarred with gum stuck underneath. Dust floated lazily in the streaks of morning light coming from the window, and the cracked whiteboard across the front looked as if it hadn't been cleaned properly in years. She stood there for a moment, inhaling deeply. And then students began to trickle in, some dragging their feet, some laughing loudly, others glaring openly at her with the unmasked hostility of young people who had already decided she did not belong. She smiled anyway and said warmly, "Good morning, everyone. My name is Miss Hart. I'm your new English teacher." The response was underwhelming. A few muttered words, a snort of laughter from the back, and silence heavy enough to crush her enthusiasm if she allowed it. But Emily didn't allow it. She moved forward, sharing pieces of her story, her love of books, her belief in the power of words to transform lives. Some students stared blankly, others doodled or scrolled on their phones, but she kept her voice steady, kept her hope alive. Yet as the minutes dragged on she began to notice the whisper-snide comments about her clothes, about her voice, about her being too young or too soft. She ignored them outwardly, though inside her stomach twisted tight, and when one boy at the back deliberately let out a loud exaggerated snore, his friends erupting in laughter, she felt the heat of humiliation crawl across her face but pressed forward. The first week was grueling. Each day she arrived early and stayed late, trying creative activities to spark interest, group discussions, writing exercises where students could tell their own stories, even little games to break the ice. A few showed flickers of engagement, their eyes lighting up when they realized she cared, but others grew bolder in their disrespect. Paper balls hit her when she turned to write on the board, chairs screeched loudly as they were pushed deliberately out of place, Cruel imitations of her voice echoed from corners of the room. And still Emily smiled. Still she left encouraging notes on assignments, praising even the smallest efforts because she believed praise could plant seeds in barren soil. One afternoon, as she leaned over to help a shy girl with her poem, she felt a sharp tug at her ponytail. The sudden sting made her gasp and whirl around, just in time to catch a group of boys laughing, one pretending to fix his hair in mockery. "Miss Barbie, teacher can't handle the jungle," one sneered, his words dripping with derision. Emily's cheeks burned, but she forced her voice calm and said, "That's not appropriate. Please sit down and focus." Their laughter only grew louder, and she turned back to her student with her smile trembling but intact, refusing to let them see the pain. That night in her apartment she stared at her reflection in the dim bathroom mirror, the fluorescent light buzzing faintly overhead, and she whispered, "You can't let them win. They're kids. They're hurting too. You're here to help." But even as she said it she felt a gnawing fear, the sense that something darker was brewing. By the second week the hostility was unmistakable. Groups huddled in corners of the hallway, their eyes following her as she passed, whispers rising like smoke behind her back. She tried reporting small incidents to the administration, but the principal waved it off, saying, "They're just testing you. It's part of the job. Show them who's boss." Yet Emily wasn't interested in domination, she believed in empathy. And now she wondered if empathy had a place here at all. On Friday of the third week, when the final bell rang and students streamed out for the weekend, Emily stayed behind to pack her things slowly, hoping to savor a moment of quiet after the chaos. The room emptied except for a small group lingering at the back, whispering, smirking, watching her. She offered a smile, "Have a good weekend," her voice soft but steady. They didn't reply. Their smirks only widened, eyes glittering with something that made her chest tighten with unease. She left the school feeling the weight of unseen eyes still on her, the late afternoon sun doing little to ease her dread. That night she lay awake in her narrow bed, staring at the cracked ceiling of her apartment as shadows shifted across it. She thought about the little Victoriessa, the boy who had reluctantly written a poem about his father, the shy girl who had smiled when Emily encouraged her, but those bright sparks were nearly drowned out by the memory of laughter, of whispers, of the sting in her scalp when her hair was yanked. She wondered if she had been foolish to believe she could make a difference here, if her dream had been Tilde Macron V. But then she remembered her own childhood, the times when teachers had looked right past her when she needed help most, and she clenched her fists against the blanket, whispering fiercely into the dark, "They won't break me, not yet." She did not know then that the storm had only just begun, that the smirks and whispers were not fading but sharpening into something crueler, something waiting for its moment to strike. For now she only lay there with her heart heavy yet defiant, believing that somehow kindness would find a way to win, even in the harshest of places, even when hope felt like the smallest flickering candle in a room full of shadows.